Hello, welcome to Powerful Perimenopause, solutions to powerfully inform, educate, and gracefully move you through perimenopause. Good morning, Dr. Carri Drzyzga. Welcome to Powerful Perimenopause.
Hi, Susanna. How are you today?
I am well. I'm in Las Vegas and it's sunny out. I know around the world there's lots of snow on this particular day.
Yeah, I'm in Ottawa and we're getting about 4 inches of snow today. So it's beautiful.
Thank you.
If you like snow, it's beautiful.
I think snow is always beautiful. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. Maybe not all the forms of it, but
Mhm.
So, ladies, let me tell you about Dr. Drzyzga. She's known as the functional medicine doc, the authority on finding root cause to the health problem so you can feel normal again. Who doesn't want that? That is why we're here. Dr. Carri holds 2 medical degrees, chiropractic and naturopathic medicine, and has extensive training in functional medicine with the Carri Institute. She has an advanced certification in bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which I'm so excited to talk about. And she's a skilled clinician. Dr. Carri has an elite level of training that few other doctors have achieved, which she gets to share all of that expertise with us, which I'm so thrilled to have been introduced to you, Dr. Carri. So she also hosts a podcast, the Functional Medicine Radio Show, and she's the author of the book, Reclaim Your Energy and Feel Normal Again, Fixing the Root Cause of Your Fatigue with Natural Treatments. Yes, please, Dr. Carri. She has her private practice in Ottawa, as she just told you she's there. So anyone in Ottawa, you are so in luck because you get to see her face to face. For all the rest of us, we'll find out more later. So Dr. Carri, I appreciate so much that you are here with us today to talk about a variety of things. We're going to talk a little bit about energy, and we're going to talk about bioidentical hormones. And because we've had not a lot of great information, That's a really silly way to say it. We've had wrong information for 20 years on bioidentical hormones and their effect and their effectiveness for our female bodies. So let's liberate the women with good information today. I'd like to start with talking about fixing the root cause of fatigue, because this is an area that we haven't had a lot of instruction on yet in this series. So I'm really excited to jump into this with you.
So for those of your attendees who are not familiar with functional medicine, in a nutshell, functional medicine, I like to say, is find the cause, fix the cause, feel normal again. And I especially got interested in this arena of fatigue from my own personal experience. So as you said, I've got 2 medical degrees. I'm a super nerd. I love to learn. I'm always taking courses and I'm always learning because at the core of it, I'm a truth seeker. So I want to know the real deal about health, wellness, the human body. And so after I went back to school to get my 2nd medical degree, I was fairly burnt out at that point. I was tired. I went through 2 years of intense stress just getting through that program. So I did a real fast track. And after I graduated, so I was really tired. I just thought, well, I just need a break. That was 2 intense years of stress. I just need a break and recharge my batteries and I'll be fine. Oh, how silly.
We're so
sometimes
easy.
It's like so silly, Carri. So at that point, like I was getting 9 hours of sleep every night. I was taking a nap every day. I had really pulled back in my private practice so I could have some time to find that balance in my life again. And guess what? My energy did not improve. And also on top of that energy issue, I was having issues with brain fog. My brain felt slow. I was searching for words. I would go to the grocery store to buy like 3 things and I could only remember 1. So now I had to write everything down. And so that was getting like concerning. And so at that point, so that's when I started for myself treating myself. And by the way, we're not supposed to treat ourselves as doctors, but I started treating myself to really figure out like what are the root underlying causes for my fatigue. And I really believe that all patients and all people are unique snowflakes. So we're going to talk kind of in generalities today, but we're still all unique snowflakes at the same time.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I eventually, from that experience came the book, because what I was seeing in my private practice is all of these other women coming in with having issues with their energy. And what I would hear over and over again is, Dr. Carri, I've gone to see my doctor, and my doctor thinks I'm depressed. And I know I'm not depressed. I know I don't need antidepressants. Or they would say, like, my doctor just says, well, you're a mom, and you're mom, you've got your kids, you're working, this is normal. And it's like, well, yeah, to a certain extent, that's normal to a certain extent.
Right.
Or the doctor would say, like, you need to take a vacation. Like, and that's not, for most people, that's not realistic. A week off is not going to change things. It might actually make it worse, because now you're like behind the 8 ball, and now you got to get caught up. And then some doctors just kind of said, or implied, like, it's in your head.
Right.
Which really, as a doctor and as a female, is well, I'm going to be very politically correct.
Yeah.
I don't want to use any 4-letter words here, but yeah, it's irritating. Like, these are real challenges that patients are having. And I know, because I was one of those patients. So yeah, out of that came the book. And then just in general, I would say fatigue can be a very complex issue to try and solve. There are so many factors behind fatigue. There's hormone factors, there's brain factors, there's gut factors. So that's the other part of fatigue that I really love seeing and treating this type of patient, is because they're all complex, they're all unique and different. And at the core, it's like a puzzle to solve when we use that principle of find the cause, fix the cause, feel normal again.
Find the cause, fix the cause, feel normal again. Yes, please do that. Yeah, it's, the concept that you brought up, where doctors think it's just in your head, or someone's suggesting maybe you just need to do a little more personal work on yourself. It's frustrating because it's not helpful. And we're already working so hard and trying to find things to make a difference. So getting that kind of feedback, yes, irritating, disempowering, and we get to be empowered. So I'm here for this exact reason, that we, especially through perimenopause, where if you've had fatigue earlier, especially in your 20s and 30s, it just gets compounded as you go, because you've had insufficiencies for possibly years that were maybe low level and you didn't know. So then come hormone fluctuations, and it's like the cat's out of the bag, and all these things are happening at once. So can we talk a little bit about, as far as energy goes, what are the kind of symptoms or first steps where people can say, first noticing, like, yeah, I have that, where you can start to take steps to make a difference?
Okay, so first and foremost, one of the questions that I love to ask patients is, and so you as a viewer can think of this right now, if you could rate your energy on average from 0 to 10. 0 is no energy at all, and 10 is your batteries are on full charge. Where are you on average? Is there a time of the day when it's best? Is there a time of the day when it's worst? Like, your energy should always be at 8 or higher.
Wow.
To have good energy.
Wow.
So if you're not there, that right there is a clue that there's something going on. And I do think, Susanna, that it's human nature that we kind of like, well, especially as females, like, we are caretakers. That's our nature. We take care of everybody else, and then we often get put on the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
And so I think for a lot of women, it just slowly creeps up on them.
Right.
And then, like you said, when they hit perimenopause and then the hormones really start to fluctuate, then it really, really bubbles up to the surface. So that question is a good place to start.
Good.
And then the other good place to start is, my gosh, how is your sleep at night? Because fundamentally, if you're not getting great sleep, of course, that's going to impact your energy.
Absolutely.
And that can be a clue as to why your energy is not where it should be. Now, having said that, some patients will say, Dr. Carri, I get 8 hours of sleep. I wake up, I'm ready to go. I feel well rested. But through my day, my energy starts to get depleted. It's like their battery starts to run low. So that means like the endurance of their brain, that's what needs to be worked on.
I love that distinction. Thank you.
Yeah. And then you have some patients and they say, oh my gosh, Dr. Carri, I sleep 8 hours, 9 hours more than that, and I still wake up tired. So right there, that's a clue for me. Oh, there's something going on with the brain. Something is inflaming the brain, because that's a classic symptom of brain inflammation.
Wow.
Is getting copious amounts of sleep, but still feeling really tired. And then that's also a symptom of potentially sleep apnea. So that's where like a sleep study would come in to see, is that the case for this patient or not? And some patients will say, I can fall asleep great, but I don't sleep through the night. This is where perimenopause, this is a classic symptom of perimenopause that we see sneaking in. I can fall asleep fine, Dr. Carri, but you know, like I wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning. I just wake up and I have a hard time falling back to sleep. Some of them will say like my brain clicks on and I can't shut it back off. Some of them will say like I'll wake up, I feel like my heart is racing in my chest and I can't fall back to sleep. Or some will say I have to get up and pee and then I can't fall back asleep. So by the way, you should be able to sleep all the way through the night without having get up to pee.
Yeah, I would love you to talk a little bit about that, because just because a lot of women don't understand the function of how the body like produces hormones so that you don't have to pee in the middle of the night. Like it's a function of a normal function. So I know that's deep and we can discuss it afterwards if you want to continue on where you are, but I would love for you to answer.
Well, I would say that the other thing is that some patients will say, I can fall asleep fine, but I just don't get deep. I feel like I don't get deep sleep. And of course, a lot of people have the Fitbit or the Oura Ring, and they can kind of track their sleeping on, you know, with their, you know, computer or their smartphone or whatever.
Yeah.
How accurate that stuff is, I don't really know.
I know.
But these are the things that I hear. And so with your question about having to get up to pee in the middle of the night, usually what that means is there's something going on with blood sugar, insulin surges, cortisol from the adrenal glands. There's something going on there. So for some women, their insulin levels through the day are kind of like on a roller coaster. And if you think of it like this, if a patient has really horrible insulin levels and they're actually diagnosed with diabetes, a classic symptom of diabetes is drinking a lot of water and peeing a lot. Of course, 99.9% of the women out there don't have diabetes, but what they do is they have to get up during the middle of the night to pee. So it's what's happening is they're on an insulin roller coaster through the day. And that is likely what's causing them in the night to not be able to sleep through the night, because it's triggering their cortisol to turn on, or it's triggering an adrenaline surge. So our body is very smart. We're built for survival. So if our blood sugar, if our glucose in our bloodstream drops too low at night and we get hypoglycemic, that our blood sugar gets too low, our body will respond by kicking out a surge of cortisol and adrenaline to get that glucose level back up. Otherwise, we're going to go into a coma and die. So this is a reflexive mechanism. But that surge of cortisol and adrenaline will wake you up. Some women, they'll tell me they wake up and they feel their heart racing and they're like, I don't know why my heart is racing, but it's a scary thing, Dr. Kane. I'm like, yeah, I can imagine it's a scary thing. And I've been there, by the way.
Me too. I've been there.
Yeah. Or some women just, they wake up, like I said, they don't understand why they're waking up. They don't have to go back. They have a hard time falling back to sleep.
Right.
And then every once in a while, there will be a woman who is starting to have hot flashes and night sweats. But really for us, for this conversation, it's not so much the hot flashes and night sweats, is all of those other reasons why women wake up during the middle of the night. And how do you fix that? Well, you got to smooth out the insulin levels. That's
Right.
all diet and lifestyle related. You can
Right.
fix that with diet. More fiber in your diet, more fat in your diet, healthy fat, more protein in your diet. Aim for lots of vegetables that grow above the ground.
Mm. That's a solution. There we go.
Fixed.
You're waking up at night and you have to
And,
be.
well, and sometimes that's kind of a quick fix, but other times it takes a while. It might take 6 to 12 months for those insulin levels to stabilize. It really depends on how long that's been going on with
Right.
that particular patient. Because again, we're all unique snowflakes.
Yes, and it's important for women to realize that you didn't get into this in 3 months. You're not going to get out of it in 3 months.
Yeah.
But every day that you take a step towards choosing your health and choosing your energy and your vitality, then you make a difference and you get that much closer to sleeping through the night, or to not having anxiety, or to not having crazy periods.
Yeah. Now, another huge reason for perimenopausal women that they're not getting good sleep at night has to do with progesterone.
Tell me more.
So when we hit perimenopause, our body is still producing lots and lots of estrogen. We're still like cranking out lots and lots of estrogen, but progesterone levels are starting to drop. And a classic symptom of that loss of progesterone is the inability to stay asleep at night. And so again, in functional medicine, we say find the cause, fix the cause, feel normal again. And in perimenopause, the cause would be you're losing progesterone, which is considered normal because you're getting older. And then the fix of that is we use hormone replacement and we give you progesterone.
Right.
No herb on the planet will help your body make progesterone again in the sheer amount that your body desires. You need progesterone. And in this case, so this is where being trained, having the advanced certification in hormone replacement there, because there's a lot of nuances in prescribing hormones. And in this case, the type of progesterone that we use for a woman that's having a hard time sleeping at night, and also for a woman who has issues with feeling nervous, feeling irritable, feeling anxious, that's another very common sign of perimenopause, is we use progesterone and we use it orally. So we use it as an oral capsule. It's prescribed. So in Ontario, that's a prescription. So depending on where you're at in North America, your state, your province that you live in, this may or may not be a prescription. You may or may not have to see a doctor. I can only speak for Ontario because that's where I practice. That's a prescription. And so how this works is when you swallow down a capsule of progesterone, it has to get metabolized through the liver. And that first pass through the liver, the bulk of that progesterone gets made into a metabolite called allopregnenolone. And that's what helps you sleep better, because allopregnenolone impacts the brain. And that's what helps you sleep deeper through the night.
Got it. So say someone is in their mid-30s and they're starting to experience this. This is the progesterone beginning to drop.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. There could be other factors. Like I said, when it comes to sleep issues and energy, there are many different factors to consider. But when we I'm a big fan when I talk to patients and just getting their history out of them and kind of putting things on the timeline. When did this start? When did that start? When did this start over here? And then we kind of line it all up. Oh, Dr. Kira, I started not sleeping well about, 5 years ago. And how old are you now? I'm 45. Okay, well, that could be the onset of perimenopause.
Right.
5 years ago, I'm 40 years old. So perimenopause usually starts in our late 30s, early 40s. It can start earlier than that. It depends on a lot of factors.
Right.
So one thing also for you and your viewers to understand is progesterone is the building block for cortisol. So in the chain of events of how hormones are made in the body or how hormones are synthesized, progesterone is the building block for cortisol. Progesterone is for reproduction. Cortisol is for survival. So cortisol is to help us cope and survive with stress, chronic stress. It's all around us, Susanna, of course, you know, we're in the pandemic. Like, this is a crazy year. But, you know, stress can be mental, emotional stress, bills, finances, work, job, family, spouse. Stress can be generated internally from gut infections, from toxins in the body, you know, metals, all kinds of stuff. But when there's chronic stress in your body is going to take that progesterone and shuttle it into making cortisol, because at that point, survival mode is more important than reproductive mode.
Right. You don't want to have babies when you're running away from tigers.
Yeah. So sometimes I see when I'm sitting down with a patient and I'm trying to understand where did this all come from? And they say like, oh, I don't know. I'm just going to say stuff off the top of my head. You know, I went through a really horrible divorce, you know, my early 30s. That's a pretty big stressor.
Yeah.
And then I had a parent that got sick. Another big stressor. I lost my job. Another big stressor. This can be throughout life too, like in the teens and the 20s and the 30s. But when you start seeing these one after one after one, then it's like, for that patient, perimenopause just might come on sooner than normal, or it might hit them stronger than normal because they're already kind of behind the 8 ball.
Right. Because they've had such surges and depletions with their cortisol. And
yeah.
Great. That's good for everyone to know. If you've had a lot of stressors in your life, then be more aware and be more vigilant, because these things, you can make a difference by the things we've already talked about with diet, lifestyle, sleeping, and let's jump into bioidenticals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because these can make such a difference. Like, I've watched women's lives just go from mediocre, I'm okay, to I'm my best self.
Yes.
So tell me
like,
about.
I haven't felt this good in years.
Right.
I know.
Let's talk about them.
I love talking to women about hormone replacement therapy because, one, it's ridiculously safe and effective.
Right.
So when we use that concept of find the cause, fix the cause, feel normal again, for perimenopause and menopause, the cause is a loss of hormones and the fix is to replace the hormones or feel like crap. And unfortunately, in the arena of healthcare these days, there is so much misinformation and false information and myths out there about hormone replacement therapy. A lot of doctors are not up to date on hormone replacement therapy. You know, I think, Susanna, what happens is once the Women's Health Initiative came out in the early 2000s, so that was a monumental research study that was done by the National Institutes of Health, biggest study of its kind up to that point about women and hormone replacement therapy. And what they used in that study were the synthetic hormones Premarin and Provera. And if you had a uterus, you got Premarin and Provera. And if you didn't have a uterus, you just got Premarin. And then within years of that study starting, they just stopped it cold turkey. The arm of the women that had a uterus and were given Premarin and Provera. And basically overnight, you know, it came out that, oh my God, hormone replacement therapy is dangerous. It's causing cancer. It's killing women. We need to stop hormone replacement therapy. And so, I mean, overnight, worldwide, women were told to stop their hormones. Now, what we know now about that is that study was actually a really crappy study.
Yeah.
Why was it a really crappy study? I don't know. economics, finances, politics, big pharma,
Yeah. Money.
bias. There's always, no matter how much you don't want to have bias in research, the reality is there is bias in research. So when we go back and we look at that research, we know that most of that research was done in an extremely flawed kind of a way.
Right.
But most medical doctors, they still think when it comes to hormones that research is the truth. And they still have this mindset of hormones are bad. That's what the Women's Health Initiative said. Having no idea of the extensive amount of research on the bioidentical hormones, estradiol and progesterone, having no idea of the sheer amount of research that's out there proving the WHI wrong.
Right.
And proving the safety of that happened in the 2000s. And since then, I believe that cultures really changing medical knowledge, perimenopause play there, because still in the models are bad. They're not medical school. Oh yeah, some patients will come in. I feel like I can fix that. And she goes, and they go, what? My doctor never told me that. Yeah, your doctors aren't, it's unfortunate. Most doctors cannot, are not able to see the very common signs and symptoms of perimenopause and menopause as hormones are changing.
I think our connection broke up a tiny bit.
I saw that,
you
yeah.
slowed down. Okay. So I only caught the tail end of what you were saying, but I understand. I'm just gonna, I understand, and I'll just recap that essentially the doctors are not trained in this way to be able to facilitate having women feel really good, because they haven't been taught and they haven't had the right information for a lot of years. So I believe the WHI rescinded all of the women's study stuff in 2017. So any doctor that's was trained before 2017, which is probably most that any of us are seeing, they didn't get the information. And if they have it,
and this is not for me to be like hating on doctors.
No,
because it's hard to be a doctor these days. You cannot know everything.
No.
In the advent of the internet, we can't know everything. We know what we know. We know what we don't know. We refer out.
Yeah. And it's great too. Like if we are educated as women, we can bring these things to our doctors. And there's actually quite a few doctors, especially like family medicine practitioners or doctors, who are open to hearing, oh, tell me more about that. Because they know that they don't know everything and they haven't heard and been exposed to everything. So that's great when doctors do have the curiosity. It can be like, what? Adrenals? And this was my situation where I was able to figure some stuff out with my doctor, and she got curious and started to research. And then she started recommending books and how to fix adrenals. She didn't have all the information. She wasn't going to go become that specialized, but people who came in and she was seeing this problem with fatigue. So she's like, well, I have these few books, read these books. So that was how she was functioning as a doctor, because she didn't have information otherwise.
Yeah. You know, once you graduate from medical school, it is a continuous learning. That's all you're doing is learn. You see patients and you're learning, trying to stay on top of things. But like I said, it's nearly impossible to stay on top of everything. But for you and your viewers out there, if you would like more information and more truth about hormones, there is a great book, and I didn't write it, unfortunately. There's a great book, and it's called Estrogen Matters. The author is Avram Bluming and Carol Tavares. So Dr. Avram Bluming, he is an oncologist, and he starts the book with the story of his wife going through menopause and hating it because she's got all of the symptoms, right? Hot flashes, night sweats, can't sleep, all of the typical.
That's why we're here, to change the story.
I want hormones. And so Dr. Avram Bluming, he goes through and he outlines chapter by chapter hormone replacement therapy and breast cancer, because that's always the biggest question, the most common question. Well, Dr. Carri, doesn't hormone replacement therapy cause breast cancer? Yes and no. If we're talking about the hormone progestin, that family of hormones called progestins, the most common being medroxyprogesterone acetate, the trade name is Provera. Yes, that group of hormones has been shown to increase the risk of breast cancer. But if we talk about the group of hormones called progesterone, all of the research to date shows that progesterone does not increase the risk of breast cancer, and that it actually reduces the risk of breast cancer.
Right. And
that progestins and progesterone, they might sound similar, but they're not at all. It's like comparing apples and oranges, or it's like comparing Trump and Obama. They're two different things. When I say that, I say that because I practice in Canada.
They're both presidents,
but I'm born and raised in Chicago. They're both presidents, but they're two totally different types of presidents. So there's apples and oranges. And a lot of doctors think progestins and progesterone are the same, and are told, oh, you're on that, Dr. Carri gave you progesterone. Oh no, that's going to give you breast cancer. And I'm like, no, that's not true. And that all of the research on estrogen as estradiol, which is what the body makes, or even as the synthetic conjugated equine estrogen, which the trade name is Premarin, all of that research is that estrogens do not increase the risk of breast cancer. They actually reduce the risk of breast cancer. And so getting back to the book, he outlines, chapter 1, breast cancer, chapter 2. I'm just going off the top of my head because I don't know. I forget what they were in order, but it was like breast cancer, hormone replacement therapy, and heart disease. Heart disease is the #1 killer. That's the one.
Yeah.
And there's so many benefits, and we can get into that if we have time, but he talks about for heart disease, for bone health, for brain health. He outlines step by step all of the research. And he does a great job of explaining why the Women's Health Initiative was such a crap study. He does a great job. It does get a little bit technical. It does. The only thing that I do not like about that book is that he is a supporter of Provera, even though the research is like not that great on it. But all in all, it's a great book. The other thing that I don't like about that book is that he's down on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
So just ignore that stuff, read the rest of it.
Right. The function of how it works. It makes sense.
It's not perfect, but it's a lot of really good information.
So talking about bioidenticals, the reasons that they are so much better for the body than the synthetic forms.
So when it comes to estrogen, the synthetic estrogen is conjugated equine estrogen. Equine means horse. They actually get that from horses' urine, pregnant mare's urine, which that's where they got the name Premarin. In the formulation of Premarin, there are multiple types of estrogens that are not made by the human body. So why are we giving them to the human body? So instead we use the bioidentical, which I think sometimes that word is also a little bit confusing, because patients are like, what does bioidentical mean? Well, it's the identical to what the human makes is estradiol. And when it comes to progesterone, we use progesterone because it's the identical to what the human makes.
Right. not something that's kind of close.
Not something that's kind of close. The nice thing about the bioidenticals are that there are some forms that are available commercially in a pharmacy, and then there are forms that are not available, and that's where we have them made by a compounding pharmacy.
Right.
And so we can really customize the formulation. If it's a cream, if it's a tablet, if it's a capsule, if it's a troche, which means it's a lozenge that melts under your tongue, if it's a vaginal suppository, there's a whole slew of ways to use hormones. That's where understanding the research and understanding the nuances of, so I'll give you an example. Oral, so we already talked about progesterone.
Right.
Unfortunately, most doctors out there don't use oral progesterone. They use progesterone cream because they think, well, progesterone is progesterone is progesterone. Progesterone cream is the same as oral progesterone. No, it's not. Progesterone cream will not impact the blood levels of progesterone. So when you slap on progesterone cream and we draw a blood test, the levels of progesterone in the bloodstream are still really low. Progesterone cream really doesn't do much more than a placebo effect.
Wow. That's really, I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, so when I see patients coming in, they're like, oh yeah, my doctor gave me progesterone cream, I'm feeling great. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, progesterone cream, that's not protecting you against breast cancer. That's not protecting you from endometrial cancer or cancer of the uterus. That's not helping protect your heart health. So I'm like, oh, you know what would be better? Let's have a conversation about potentially trying a different form of progesterone, a different route.
Right. It makes sense.
An oral capsule, a vaginal suppository, a troche, which is a lozenge that melts under the tongue. So that's with progesterone. The other big one is with estradiol. There's estradiol cream that you can use, and then there's estradiol orally as a tablet or capsule that you can use. But the research, again, going back to the research shows that oral estradiol has the biggest effect on cardiovascular health.
Okay.
Preventing heart disease, reducing the risk of heart attacks, stroke, and death. And that estradiol will actually take the plaquing within the arteries and shrink it, which, by the way, no other drug has been shown to do that, including cholesterol-lowering medications. And by the way, I should say the research shows that cholesterol-lowering medications increase your risk of breast cancer, but your doctor will never tell you that.
Wow.
So when we're looking at for a female, and I should say, I know we're talking today really about perimenopause. We don't start using estrogen in any form until a woman has really crossed that threshold and hit menopause.
Right. So it would just be on the progesterone side, right? And in perimenopause. But this is important to know because we're all getting there. Like no one gets out.
You'll get there.
No one's getting out without menopause, like half the world, right?
Yeah.
So.
And so to make that distinction, because more women die of some kind of cardiovascular related problem as compared to something like breast cancer or osteoporosis, like fracture or something like that.
It's still the number one killer of women. Like we
want to protect heart health, and the symptoms of a heart attack in women are so much different than the symptoms of a heart attack in a man.
Oh. Why is this the first time I'm hearing this?
I don't know.
I hear this like you hear
when you think about a heart attack is like I've got the weight of an elephant on my chest. I can't breathe. I've got pain shooting down my arm. That's the classic heart attack in a man, but not in a woman. In a woman, it's much more subtle. It might be like my stomach feels upset. I feel nauseous. There is actually no pain down the arm or no pressing, crushing elephant on the chest. It can be very subtle and deadly.
Ladies, we get to hold each other high and
understanding
this information. No, it's great because so much as I've researched and I've done exercise research too, and like how much of our research is done on men.
Yeah.
And as the subjects, and postmenopausal
Yes.
women, not cycling women. So a lot of
Yeah.
statistics are skewed because they've just
Yeah.
historically been done on men. Men are easier, they don't cycle, they don't have these
Yeah.
fluctuations. They're much easier to come up with a consensus with. So it's good for us to
Yeah.
know.
You bring
Like,
up an excellent point that the bulk of research in all other areas besides hormones usually is done on men, young, healthy males between 18 and 35. And then it's
right,
extrapolated into, results for a female. And
right.
that extrapolation should not be done.
Because
We should,
estrogen's awesome. And we have a lot of it.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. So that's great for women to know. Like, that's a basic thing that I feel every woman like should know, that the symptoms of a heart attack between men and women are different. And ladies, as we go through this, you're going to find that a lot of the experts will be saying, well, for women it's different. And one of the functions of that is because we have cycles. And that makes a huge difference in the entirety of our body. This is why attending to our hormones, attending to our stress levels, attending to our sleep and our health makes such a big difference, because the science that's been done hasn't necessarily been related to women. So we have lots of great science going on in the last, I would say, 20 years
mhm,
that's much better, but we have a long way to go.
mhm,
So take this, I'm glad this is why we're here, is to educate women and to let women understand that you get to have your best life coming out in this time.
mhm.
And there's ways to do it. And there's people like Dr. Drzyzga to help us and give us all the right information. So I've interrupted you. I want to talk for like 2 hours. We should probably wrap it up pretty soon. Um,
What other
it,
questions do you have?
I
I
have
know,
I have
we're
100 questions. So we talked about sleep, which was a big one. We talked a little bit about energy, about the starting steps of knowing of when to start to address your energy. And ladies, you get to educate yourselves. You get to research books, because it's in your hands and it's not hard, and there's things on Audible, and we have so many resources available now that we're learning about them. I've had to research them for years, and I'm finding all these jewels all over. I imagine like finding good information is finding like diamonds in a fish tank, where there's lots of rocks everywhere, and then you find these diamonds and they're just perfect, and they're brilliant, and they're giving the right information, and they're advocating for us women. So as far as more questions, we should probably stop. Can we do like 3 interviews?
if you want to,
Just,
I mean, we could, but
oh, maybe we'll get back on for a bonus. I'll see. That would be, we'll see. Um, can you tell people where to find you? And we had talked about a possible free gift for the group. And do you want us to talk about that, or we'll just put it in the link in the bio? And
yeah, sure. So we talked about at the top of the interview, you talked about my book,
mhm.
Reclaim Your Energy and Feel Normal Again, Fixing the Root Cause of Your Fatigue with Natural Treatments. So I'm more than happy to offer that to your viewers as a free gift. You do have to pay for the
Wow.
shipping and the handling, but you
Okay.
do get a real paperback in the mail,
Love it.
as long as you're willing to pay for the shipping and handling. And so I'll send you the link so that you can put that in on the website in the notes and whatnot.
That will be there.
Yeah, and then along with that, you'll get some videos and whatnot. And then if you do want to learn more about me
Yes.
and listen to some of my podcasts, I've interviewed some of the leading experts in the field of natural medicine
Mhm.
on my podcast. And then there's my blog posts and videos and all that stuff. Go to drcarri.com. So that's spelled DRCARRI.com. And then, of course, my private practice, if you happen to be in Ontario. And now during, the pandemic, I don't see patients in my office. So all of my practice at this point is 100% virtual. So if you're in Ontario and your feet are somewhere in Ontario, I don't care where, we can connect virtually and have a doctor-patient relationship. So my private practice is functionalmedicineontario.com.
Functionalmedicineontario.com.
Mhm.
Great. Where else are you on Instagram? Are you on Facebook? Do you have social media, or is that all?
I do have
Um,
social media, but honestly, I don't remember what that is off the top of my
okay,
head.
that's fine. We'll put it in the show notes, in the series notes. So, but you can find Dr. Carri. Go to her website, drcarri.com, and I'm sure you have everything there. Thank you so much, Dr. Carri. I love having these conversations because we all get to learn together and we all get to be empowered together. And it's so it's like a big breath of fresh air to hear there's hope, there's change. You can make a difference right now. You don't have to wait until you're feeling worse or have to wonder what's going on with your body all the time, or what's going to happen next, or is this going to get worse, because we can make a difference right now. So thank you, Dr. Carri, for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Okay.